Okay, so like a quiz like this is an open-ended quiz. It's about your imagination and just figuring something out. So overall objective, you're creating a novelty item to make people interested, to give out. Let's say you're working for Discovery Channel and you're running a booth and you want to have these keychains out there, people pick them up because they're interesting, they're free, yada yada yada, they're inexpensive for you to make because you can just print them. So let's start off with, let's just say that I'm going to actually make one of these keychains myself, and I won't worry a whole lot on my part about the design. You all can come up with the design, but let's just talk about technique. So let's say that I've got the idea in my head what I'm going to use. So what's my first step in Fusion to make this happen? What do I start with? What's the first thing you do in Fusion to start making something? All right, you got to do a sketch though, right? You got to start with your sketch. So I hit my sketch tool to set to create. I select my plane I'm going to draw on. How big can the shark be, by the way, or the device be?
60 to 80 millimeters.
60 to 80. So I'm looking at the grid here. Here's 50, here's 100, here's 60, there's 80, that kind of thing. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And let's say about right there. And I'm going to start off, and let's just say I make a little shark pattern. Nothing fancy for the time being. There it is. And you'll notice, it's throwing dimensions on. Are the dimensions that big of a deal for me in this phase? Not really, because I'm just designing something to size. And that's a horrible shark mouth, but, that's okay for right now. Okay? And I could tweak, and I can pull, and I can stretch these features. So, for example, I can grab this after I draw it and start adjusting shapes. Now, by the way, when Fusion does all these little double lines here, little edge here, a little T shape here, what do these mean? Anybody know what those things are? What does these double little arrows mean? Any guesses? Well, remember the term for this stuff is parametric modeling. Parametric modeling means it's based on features, and Fusion is trying to predict what you are prioritizing. So what it's saying is, okay, I'm going to assume that he's trying to draw this line parallel to this line. I'm going to assume that he's trying to do something perpendicular to something else. See how this is like a 90 degree? I didn't really draw it at 90 degree. It assumed that and helped me out. So these are constraints that it is adding in to actually sort of assist me. Now, I may not want constraints on, but for right now, it's okay. We're kind of getting started with this stuff. But that's what all those little icons mean. It's trying to interpret what you're doing. And pretty simple process. We'll talk a little bit more about what those are, but just be aware when you see these things, it's trying to help you by assuming what you're trying to do. Remember, this is a software designed for part making, not necessarily graphics, so it's trying to make things very structured for it. Anyway, there's my sketch. How about some eyeballs? I'll throw in a nice little circle here for, let's see, hit this again, circle, 2-point circle will work. I'll go there to there. There's a creepy looking eye. How about a fin shape of some type? This is so bad. It really is. Okay, so there we go. And my sketch is done. Okay? Except for, in fact, I need a keychain hole, right? So what size? I probably need to go back in here and double click to reactivate that sketch. Now, what size hole did I say you had to make the keychain hole?
4 to 5.
4 to 5. All right, so center diameter right here is a good spot for the keychain. It's at 5. I'll just type in 5, hit enter. And there we go. And now my part's ready to finish the sketch and hit the extrude button. Okay, so technique-wise, I'm okay so far. Click inside my zone. Something's not working. Well, actually it is. It did get it. I didn't think it was going to make it, but I must have closed it. Whenever you don't see like a nice blue when you hit extrude and select the zone, that means you probably have a little edge that's opened up. Anyway, this is my really bad shark. How tall do we want to make it? How thick?
No more than 10.
No more than 10, so let's go 8. That sounds good. Hit OK. And there is our very creepy looking shark keychain. Now, in the requirements, you're also supposed to add in something, to get people to understand what this is, especially in my case where it's like an abstract shark. So what would you suggest I do? Add some text perhaps to get people's attention? All right, so I can get a new sketch and tell it to place it on the surface of this one. So I click that surface, and let's see what we can create here. Now, I could go through and add in some lines to actually draw out Shark Week, or I could just use the text tool and then place the text. Now, my problem is I didn't give myself enough space, so we're probably going to have a problem with this. And it's upside down. Awesome. So let's see if I can't do a 180 on that. There we go. Watch. And we can bold it, and we can probably place it a little bit better. And that's just horrid looking, but you get the idea. And that sketch is now done. So what do we do to make this text become real? An object? What do we hit? Your extrude, or you go to your create tool here, hit your extrude, select. You got to watch out for selecting the right thing, and I don't know if I hit it or not. Let's find out. 5. No, I got it. All right, what's my height on my extrusion of my text you want to go? What would you suggest? 5 could do it. I kind of like this 2, 3-ish here. You kind of sometimes be proportional. Maybe 3 looks good. And I hit OK. And now my shark has this, weird watch tattoo engraved on top of it. And this would not be a good printing example because this H is hanging out over top of nothing when it was printing it up. So not a good example of design, but technique. That's what you're doing. It's a sketch, it's an extrude, it's another sketch on another surface, it's an extrude, and it's kind of pulling it together. Now, if I realize this whole triangle thing going on here, this horrible attempt at a side fin is not going to work for me, what can I do? Do I have to start all the way over? Or what can I do to fix this problem? Okay, bottom left corner, we got this little timeline here of creations, right? I can double click on this sketch 1. Takes me back in the sketch menu, and I just delete this whole triangle thing. Now here's the cool thing, I don't even have to delete all the lines if I want to. I can leave the lines. As long as they're not closed, they can no longer be extruded. I hit stop sketch, and now that little hole is no longer there. The watch probably needs to be better positioned, so I'm going to go into this sketch and edit it, and I'm just going to grab my watch, if I can here, and I'm going to try. Come on, buddy. Alright, stand by. I double click a few more times. Get the watch to be in a better position. Let's say I don't want it to overcome that, right? So I'm going to change watch height down. We're going to take it down to 8 maybe 8.5. Gets it right on that 8.8 maybe. Gets it right on that edge, hit OK. Now I haven't recreated a new piece of text. All I have done is simply, modify the original text there. I'm stopping that sketch. And now the watch has been adjusted to match up. Okay? So that's a quick example of like a technique like this. It's all in your planning and realizing you can go back and edit your sketches. Now your timelines will typically look this format. You've got a sketch, you've got an extrusion. You've got a sketch, you've got an extrusion. And that pattern, of course you can always drag this thing back to kind of see your creation process. But this right down here is where you go to make changes and to see what you need to change. Now if I wanted to, I could fancy it up just a little bit more. I could go through and modify with some fillets. I could round some edges here, round this edge, say 2 maybe, smooth things out. And I've got a slightly improved. Maybe I could do something about that weird mouth with a fillet. Orbiting around. You'll notice that I do a lot of orbiting. That's really crucial for this stuff. You always want to get close to your work. Let's change this to maybe an 8. Ooh, not that big. How about a 2? 1.5. There we go. Slightly better mouth. And there's my creation. At this point in time, if I was going to turn it in, I might want to do a screen capture right now and put the image where it needs to go. Again, how do I do a screen capture? Snipping tool. Go find your snipping tool on your computer. You can always search for it. Make a snip around your object. Let's say you want to draw some attention to something and say this is important. So I say, bam, this is important. horrible cursive writing with my mouse, but then I could actually put that into a Word file or whatever, submit it whatever format I wanted to. But that's your basic technique for stuff like this. Questions on this particular little quiz you want to ask? It's all in procedure. Parametric modeling is all about procedure, step by step. So just keep that in mind. All right. Say that you really love this this design, so you want to do your export, and that's a pretty easy process. No, I didn't mean to hit that button. Hang on. Close that down. There we go. So go down here. I'm going to go to, I got choice of export, which is really a little bit more geared towards CNC manufacturing and other types of transfers. It will work, but it's not the best way. 3D print, but you got to watch your settings on the 3D print. You're not actually going to 3D print it, you're just trying to get the STL file out to 3D print. So with that in mind, you go through this. Here's my selection. Yep, that's what I want to do. I don't really care about preview mesh. Refinement, that's fine if it wants to be high. With a simple part like that, that refinement's not going to eat up data. My output, I don't want it to send it to 3D printing utility. I don't have that hooked to a printer, so I uncheck that. So what it's going to do by unchecking that, now it knows I need to create a file, not try to send data somewhere through a cable and turn it on a printer. So I've got my selection, got my refinement, not too concerned about the refinement options, although you can hit it and make some changes, but it's not a big deal right now. Got that unchecked, and I hit OK. It pops up, says where you want to save it to, so I'll call it ENW Shark 1, hit save. There it is on the screen. This is the STL file. That's what I would actually save to like a thumb drive or email to myself or whatever the case may be to get it to my slicing software and the printer. But there's more steps coming with that. I'm loading it up so you can see it. And blah, blah, blah. There is a mesh version of my model. So that is the STL file. Notice that I'm no longer in Fusion. This STL file was opened by Mesh Mixer. And there's other programs that can open STL files, but it's basically a done design. I don't do a lot of modification at this point. If I wanted to modify my shark, I would go back into Fusion and make my changes. But that's the procedure. You just go to your down arrow next to your tab or file here, your sheet, 3D print, make sure it's turned off where it says send to 3D print utility, select your object of course, and you can do the preview if you want to. But hit OK, and then it gives you that option to save the file. And that's how you would actually get the STL file out and walk it to a printer or send it to a printer to start printing. Questions? All right, fairly straightforward process. So, and not a lot of things go wrong. You can show you the preview. That just gives you an idea of how it's going to mesh it up. But it doesn't really matter a whole lot as long as the mesh is created.